Hi. Can I introduce the other panelists?
Yes, please.
Oh, beautiful. I'm going to introduce three men. I was going to say young men, but time is flying. First, Juan Franco. Juan is a senior here at Lehman College. He should graduate in December. You want to say something, Juan?
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be on this side of the fence. Right here in the Lancia. I'm coming from work, so excuse my, I had to stop. I can't do this and drive at the same time. So I'm happy to be here and free. Right here in the Lancia having a meeting with y'all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Dennis Woodbine. Dennis is an administrator for Exodus Transitional Community in Nyack, New York. Dennis?
Hello, yes, I'm a senior case manager, facilitator, and credible messenger for Exodus in Poughkeepsie. Hello.
And third is Keston Jones. Keston is the CEO of The Farm, a reentry agency. He is also an adjunct professor, both at NYU and at Yeshiva University. And probably within a year or so, he will get his doctorate degree.
Yes, Dr. Mazza. In about a year or so, it's a pleasure to be here today. And I'm also here on behalf of SEO Family of Services, where I'm a senior director at running the fatherhood program and a couple of other initiatives. So it's a pleasure to be here, especially talking about this subject that is near and dear to me.
Thank you. I got to add, all three of these guys were students of mine at one time or another.
I was going to ask you, Dr. Mazza, if you could explain what your connection is to all of them. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. Would you like to also introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Colin Mazza. I'm chair of the social work department here at Lehman College. And I've worked in prisons and in reentry for about 35 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Dennis and Keston were first students of mine while they were at Sing Sing. I ran a parenting fatherhood workshop, a 16-week course, and that's how I met both of them. And Juan, I actually met through the BARD program. And when Juan was released, he came to Lehman College. And somebody heard about me and kind of hooked Juan and me up together. And that's the history of the theater. Keston, you had, when did you release when you got home?
Say that again?
Some of the challenges you faced upon release.
Oh, God. So where do I begin? So I'll just go back a little bit before we get to my release date. I was incarcerated at 16 years old. I just turned 16. It was 1994, and it was a terrible time for myself, my family, but also in considering just the circumstances why I went to prison. There was a lot of shame involved, and as a young man growing up into adulthood, I did so in the prison system. So flash forward years in various prisons, one of the things that I always sought out was education. And I always gravitated towards individuals that were educated. So even within a place like prison, there were folks that obtained master's degrees, obtained forms of education, and were doing it via correspondence, or were fortunate enough to be in a facility like Sing Sing, where they were able to get associate's, bachelor's degrees, and so on and so forth. So for myself, initially it was a rough start, but after some time, you kind of like, you mellow out, you gravitate towards the right people. So in coming out towards release, I was in a much better situation mentally because of all the planning and training that I've done. In addition, I gravitated towards a field of fatherhood. So when I came out of prison, the biggest challenge for me was one, to get acclimated to being released. I was a young teenage kid, never having any sort of responsibility, paying bills, and now I'm a 32-year-old man having to be responsible. So it was really figuring that out. But one of the other challenges was for me to obtain an ID. I was not born in this country. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. And when I went into prison, IDs and, my green card and some certain things that I needed wasn't really solidified. So when I came home, because I wasn't an American citizen, my pathway towards getting a regular ID, Social Security, and all these other things were very difficult. So I think that was the biggest challenge for me initially coming home. And fortunately, I communicated with the right people. One of the councilwomen in my district in Brooklyn assisted me in obtaining the proper credentials and the proper ID. And that allowed me to be in a better position to obtain employment, which I did shortly after I was incarcerated, after I was released. So I guess I could leave it there and we could talk further as we continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Dennis, you want to
Yes.
talk about some of your experiences?
So in one regards, my transition was kind of abnormally smooth. I came home, I had the support of my wife. I came home with a college education. And so I came home mentally strong and better able to adjust. And I came home with the help of Julio Medina and Exodus. I had a full-time employment waiting for me. As a case manager, I constantly work with people who come home, and I'm constantly reminded of the challenges that I was able to avoid. A lot of people come home and they don't have family support. They come home and they may have a GED or they may not have a GED. And as far as employment, that's a struggle. So some of the challenges that people normally face, especially after doing 22 years in prison, I was able to avoid due to those three things: my wife, my education, and Julio Medina from Exodus.
Shout out to Julio Medina as well. That's a mentor of mine and someone that also supported me during my transition. And one of the things that I'm proud to say is there are a number of figures in this work that have always been there for individuals that coming home. And one of them is Dr. Carl Mazza. That should not be understated. The work that he's done at Lehman College in supporting folks who are formerly incarcerated. If you mention his name in the world of reentry, in the world of fatherhood, just in the world of mentoring, he's certainly a force. And I'm at Yeshiva University in the PhD program because of his mentorship. And he is a graduate of Yeshiva University as well. So I'm proud to follow in his footsteps. Julio Medina is another individual. We have individuals like Eddie Ellis, who's no longer with us. There's a number of individuals that were able to assist individuals like myself, Dennis, and Juan in order to be in the position that we are right now.
That's a really great segue. I just want to point out that there's actually a question from Catherine Ramirez, who wrote to say that she's a Lehman student whose husband is currently serving time in prison. And so she is hoping to learn how to better support him and advocate for him. I wonder if any of you have advice for her and other folks who might be watching.
Dennis, that question seems tailor-made for you.
How to better support them and advocate for him? I think by just simply being his wife, being there, supporting him emotionally. It helps you to survive. It helps you to make it through. I know what it's like to not have family for the majority of my time in prison. And I know what it's like to have family, to have somebody who loves you, who's willing to deal with the shame of coming through those prison doors. So I think just by being his wife, by loving him, by supporting him while he's in there, she's doing all she could possibly do. Maybe Keystone could add more to that.
Yeah, I mean, I second that. And for myself, I spent the majority of my time, I did 17 years. I spent the majority of the time, not married. And I often saw my peers who were married, and the relief that they had, you know, when things were going well, how, you know, the love that they had for their family and vice versa. And it was always something that, you know, for those that do have family support, and especially for those that appreciate family support, I'm always in awe of the families that decide to come up there and go through tremendous adversity, man. I worked in the visit room for a lot of years, you know, doing the pictures. I was always in like a leadership position in many cases in a lot of the facilities that I was in, and just seeing the families struggling after a 8-hour trip or a 6-hour trip, bringing a 55-pound package or what have you. My hat goes off to all the families. So to specifically address the question, you know, I'm sure this goes without saying, but I know your husband appreciates you. He appreciates what you do for him, and if there's children involved, with what you do for the family. And I'm hopeful that in there he's able to receive the support. He's involved in the right peer groups where he's not involved in certain things that are not pro-social, and that he comes out as a support to your family, because there are many individuals that if given the opportunity, they can come out to do great things, like Juan, like Dennis, like myself, and countless others. So just being there for him, a letter goes a long way, and I'm pretty sure he bombards you with letters as well. You know, gift cards and postcards that somebody has made. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm hopeful that when he comes home, he'll be appreciative of everything you've done for him.
I can second that. I did 33 years, and family support is one of the main factor that helped me survive 3 decades and stuff. The letters, the phone calls, the family love. Without that, I don't think anybody could come out of there with the same mind after 33 years locked up under that pressure. So family support is one of the main things, and they encourage him to start looking for positive programs that will give him something to come home. Better part. Okay. Family support is the best thing you can have in the family in jail. They help you survive.
I just want to add something, because I think all three of these men said this. In my experience in working in prison, letters are of tremendous importance. And one of the reasons they serve as what's called a transitional object. If I write a letter to Juan, and Juan and I have a really close relationship. Juan is my son. When he gets that letter, he knows that I wrote it, that I touched this paper, that I touched this envelope. So it brings a little piece of me to be with Juan.
It's more personal.
Yeah.
It's definitely more personal. And then the photos, the guys know we put photos in the, I used to put photos in the wall just to remind where my family was, vacations. So my family kept me for 33 years into the end, you know, because all my family is gone right now. They never got to see me come home. But while I was in there, they made my life more humane. They shared their experience. I see my nephew grow up, my nieces, see my grandparents get old and died, see my father grow up, both times. And it kept me humane, it kept me alive. So now that I'm out here, the transition is a little bit different because I don't have the family support. So that's a whole different dilemma. That's for the next question.
Absolutely. In addition, so, you know, I mentioned that, you know, as far as marriage, not having that while I was incarcerated, but I did have family support. And in a few facilities that I was in, we were able to have what we call family reunion programs. And, you know, my mother was able to come up and spend a weekend with me on multiple times, and just being able to spend time away from bars, just being there, having her bring food, you know, thinking about memories that we've had when we were a child, you know, all these things allowed for a semblance of just normalcy, and it prepared me to just be, you know, free and be in this environment. So in addition to having a wife and so on and so forth, the family, the nuclear family, the people from your community that comes up to support you is very big for those that's incarcerated as well.
Carl, you have a follow-up, or do you want me to?
Actually, I wanted to ask Juan a question. Since Juan is spent the last couple of years of his life at Lehman, what was the most challenging thing? Because you came to Lehman very soon after you were released, right?
Right after I got released.
Yeah. What was the
It was
biggest challenge in being now a full-time student outside?
Group support. When we inside, well, I seen the video, I see my friends, I do study halls with them. Bard and Naya share the same space and Fishkill. So the movies we seen has these study halls in there. I miss that. It was a family. I hear these kids is all we all got different lives. So I don't have that support. If it's not for you, let's not even talk. You have been my support since I came home. I lost that unit. The guys inside know what I'm talking about. We click. We help ourselves study. And if my assignment is too much to me, I go out there to study. Or yo, listen, I got a problem right here. And these guys break it down for me. They help you. My friend Paulie, the one you met when we went to physical graduation, that was my mathematician. He taught me, he really helped me pass math. We had that family support out there. Out here, life is different. Everybody, so we don't have that. I guess you see, Dr. Mazza, you see some of the friends that I had, that they already graduated, they help me. But inside is double that. We always together. We see ourselves in the yard. We see on our regular jobs, programs inside. So we always communicate. We see each other. In the library, in the meso, we always consulate. So the support system is phenomenal inside. That's why our grades is even better. My grades out here has gone down. I don't have that support system. I really don't. And editing, because you know my language. Editing, I had like 3 editors. One, and I had one favorite because he understood the way I speak, and he never take nothing from my paper. I was able to express myself. It was my paper, and he helped me, and my language improved. But that's because of the support that you have inside. In here, out here, it's not the same. Not the same. So that's been my struggle, trying to keep up my grades with life and girlfriends. Oh my God, girlfriends. I didn't have that when I was inside.
Was that plural?
I believe it was plural, if I understood you correctly. Well, maybe we can come back to that. There is actually a question about finding support once you're outside, to your point, Juan Franco. So I'm wondering if any of either Dennis or Keston or even Carl, if you would like to talk about some of the programs that are available once you actually you have transition.
So I think definitely if a person is released and they need support, if you're located in Newburgh, if you're located in Poughkeepsie or New York City, you definitely want to go to Exodus. There's a ton of support that they can offer you. They have a variety of reentry programs for people who are transitioning home. They have preventive programs to stop youth from going in. They have the wellness center. They provide case management for people who may need referrals to where they could go for assistance with substance abuse or mental health. And one thing about Exodus that stands out and sets us apart from other agencies is that 90% of the staff is justice involved themselves. We have that same shared lived experience. So if there's an Exodus in your vicinity, I definitely think you could go there for support.
And what's the website? Is it just exodus.org or?
Yes.
Okay.
No, for us, it's easy to find the programs. Before I came home, like I said, I had a family support when I was inside. Before we got released, I lost almost everybody. So I prepared myself. The connection books, that was my best friend. I used Exodus. Osborne. I went to listen, my network with all the organizations is set. My transition was nice and easy in that sense. I had apartments, they helped me with everything. I didn't go to Exodus because I took the program in Osborne, but I got friends in Exodus. I go to Exodus a lot of time. And I refer people to Exodus. The networking between Exodus and Osborne is fabulous. Listen, I first came home, I had a phone, I had emergency food stamp, cash, a place to stay. The same day I got it. As a matter of fact, they came and picked me up. And they took me to all that step. And the next day, they took me to parole. So I utilized the connection book fully.
Can you explain, Juan, can you explain briefly to the people here what the connection book is for people who don't know?
Connection book is something for, I don't know, it's from John Jay or one of those scholars that pull. Hold on, let me close the window. Connection book is a referral box over everything. Unemployment, how to file for Social Security, welfare, jobs, shelter. Everything that they've figured out that we need to come home is in that book. Every year it's released. So when you come home, if you're smart enough, you pick up that book. And I did. I used all the connections that I could in it. Got free clothes. I mean, not saying that, but at the beginning, they helped me transition perfectly. So I didn't have that struggle. I'm still getting some benefit from there because I'm still going to school. I ain't finished. Got one more semester for my bachelor and one more year for my master. So I'm still receiving some of the benefits that I received through Osborne and Exodus and all the other programs.
Yeah, the connections book is pretty much our white pages, yellow pages. It consisted of all the information that Juan spoke about, and they actually updated it every year. Every year they had a new version. It might have been in red one year, yellow the other year, but it was something that we all gravitated towards and utilized. And Dennis is correct. Exodus is one of those organizations that we knew about. When I was in Fishkill, Kulu Medina came up to Fishkill and spoke at one of our legislative conferences that we put on. So he was always someone that he spoke about his transition, his journey himself, being in the college program and going to New York Theological Seminary and things like that. So we were aware of these individuals, and they put in my radius, the importance of education, and let me know that just because I was formerly incarcerated doesn't mean that I can't, succeed and be whole. Another organization is Osborne, Fortune Society, I should say, which is another organization that provides a number of services for the formerly incarcerated population. In addition, SEO Family Services, for which I'm employed, we have a young adult workforce program where individuals 16 to 24 who are transitioning from Rikers and incarceration can also receive services. So the thing about it, if you really want to receive help, it's available to you. The concern for many people who are transitioning from incarceration is that many of the facilities aren't equipped to prepare you to transition in the ways that that rehabilitation would have people believe. We have individuals from facilities that take it upon themselves to fight and to make sure that these services are in place, because if we leave it up to administration, it would not be done effectively. So shout out and kudos to many people that are currently incarcerated right now, some for 30, 40 years, that have been in there and ensuring that we who are about to be released have the services that we need.
Excuse me, a question for, I know technology is another issue for us, learning technology. So, but I got a question. I got a call from my boss. I want to call him back. Can I call and I leave? How can I do that? And stay in the meeting? I'm trying to figure out how I'm jumping through things.
Just come off camera and make the call. And then when you come back off, you'll just mute your phone, come off camera, make the call, and then when you finish, you'll be back on.
And I will not lose it. Okay, beautiful. Oh, just checking. Thank you.
So Carl, there are some questions about how to get involved at Lehman. I think there's an adjunct who's asking how they can be involved. Do you want to talk about Reentry at Lehman and the website?
Sure. Lehman, a year ago, developed a reentry committee. And the reason we developed it is that there were certain people on campus in different departments and different units who worked with students who were formerly incarcerated. But we all worked within our own little world. And we thought that it would be much smoother and we could do better service to reentry students if we formed a committee. So Professor Penny Prince is the chair of the committee. You can email her. You can also email me. And we recently put up a website. We meet about at least once a month. We have students on our committee. The committee is open to anyone in the Lehman community.
Thank you for mentioning that. I also added in the chat in response to Penny Prince the URL, and there are some other URLs for both Exodus and Reentry at Lehman. So it looks like Senator Bailey has joined us as well, so that's great.
Hey everybody! I'm so sorry. If you hear I'm still on my hearing in the background because we're talking about the reopening of courts, and but I wanted to make sure I hopped on my device and make sure that I lend my voice and support and just let you guys know that I'm here to 100%. So
thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We've been talking about resources and other available supports available to folks who are reentering the community from prisons. And if you have anything else that you'd like to add, we do have some questions also about the impact of COVID-19 there as well. But if there's anything else that you have insight about, feel free to.
sure. I want to say so College Behind Bars is like the documentary does not do it justice. Having been able to observe the program this past December was an eye-opening experience. It was something that from my perspective, growing up in the inner city but never being in trouble, but knowing people who were just as gifted as I was that just went down a different path. Being able to have folks like that get an opportunity to be able to rehabilitate themselves, because if that's really what we're supposed to be doing with incarceration, that's what we should be trying to do more with individuals who have made mistakes. And we pride ourselves on trying to be a nation of second chances, but people aren't disposable, and we often treat them as such. Programs like this are critical in terms of being able to allow folks to rehabilitate themselves in a positive way, and just be able to contribute in an amazing way. So I'm more here just to lend my support and say how all I am of you all in the program. And I'm in support, and obviously we're in tough fiscal times, but I think that we should try to figure out a way to expand the program. I don't know exactly where we're getting the money from. I just have to put it out there. But I think that we should be looking to expand the program.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Bailey. I appreciate you making time to stop by and contribute your voice to the conversation. There also have been some questions. We mentioned a connections book, or the connections book that Juan was talking about, and that others mentioned. A couple of people in the chat have asked where they can find it. Does anyone have a good answer for that?
I know, I'm not positive about this, but I think it may be published by the New York Public Library.
I believe so. I think that's what we write every year to get one.
Yeah.
You can get it yourself. I will send it I will search for it. I will search for the address for you.
Okay.
But I believe it's in the York Library.
Okay, someone has also, just Googled it and confirmed that it is available from the New York Public Library. So
Okay.
I think it was Ann Rice who was asking the question about Dennis speaking to the additional challenges of people returning to the COVID crisis. So Dennis, can you speak to that?
So people returning. I know that right now, Exodus has 3 hotels in New York City that they're working with the mayor on staffing, right? You have Exodus staff members who are providing 24/7 services to people who have just been released either from Rikers Island or upstate prisons who were released due to COVID or during this period. These people are the people who have been released are receiving case management, care coordination, housing being the main thing that Exodus is focusing on, getting them housing, in addition to, again, mental health treatment and substance abuse treatment. Don't know if that answers the question. Please give me clarity if it doesn't.
There's a little bit of a lag time in the chat, so I imagine that's been sufficient. Carl, I can turn it over to you. I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay. Just for a couple of minutes, why don't the 3 of you talk about what your own personal future goals are? Start with you, Keston.
Are you sure we have enough time to go over all the goals that I have? I mean, the thing about my goals is that when I was in prison, I had the audacity to read. I had the audacity to think outside the box and to take and escape from these cells that strive to confine me. And I visualized a different person. I visualized a different community. I visualized myself as someone who is considered a leader in the community. And since my release, I've gradually worked towards that goal. And, I immediately sought education, obtained my master's degree, and from there I went right into the PhD program. I always wanted to be a teacher, so I started teaching as an adjunct in the social work program. And it gives me a sense of pride to be at Yeshiva, the only Black male professor in the MSW program, and really developing a knack for it that developed out of facilitating classes while I was incarcerated, facilitating HIV and AIDS classes, parenting classes, fatherhood classes. It really gave me the skills that I needed to address a room with a sense of professionalism, being prepared. One of the things that documentary would show you, especially when it came to debating, those folks were prepared in ways that people would be surprised. They would say that, this is an incarcerated population, this is easy, and not realizing that while we was incarcerated, like Juan said, we would really spend a lot of time, just focusing on the word and reading and it provided me with a direction. So as far as future goals, the farm was founded in 2014, the Foundation for the Advancement and Rehabilitation of the Marginalized. It's an organization in which it just speaks about the community as a farm. And in order for us to change what we see and what we believe is wrong with the community, we have to start from our young folks, those young kids that's growing up. And as a farm, in order to grow, you have to plant the seed, you have to, water the earth, you have to continue to invest in that. And I think that a lot of times in our communities, there's a lack of investment, but there's this notion that we should be okay, we should be all right with it. And society and statistics have shown that if you don't invest in a people, sometimes chaos can ensue. So as far as my goals is to continue to be a change agent, continue to grow the farm. I'm also employed at SEO Family Services, an organization that is one of the largest, employers in the nonprofit world. And we have a number of other programs, which including the fatherhood program. So fatherhood is big for me. So continuing to do the work. Dr. Mazza and I have we've spoken at a number of panels, and he's given me the direction and knowing, and believing that I have something to say and my voice is important to the discussion. And one of the things that Glenn Martin has said in the past, he said that those closest to the problem is often closest to the solution, yet furthest from resources. And we want to bridge that gap. And throughout my career, I want to be one of those individuals that can bridge that gap. In addition, I started a YouTube show, a YouTube show called Voices. Please check it out, Voices Keston Jones. You can check it out on YouTube. It's a show where I interview folks like yourselves who are doing great work in the community, and Voices stands for Visionaries Offering Information with Clarity, Expertise, and Substance. So check it out. It's about 30-something episodes there. And I think it can be a great tool for social work students as well, because I'm interviewing various people from different areas. So Dr. Mazza, please don't ask me to talk about what I want to do in the future, because we can be here a long time. Finally, Senator Bailey, representing the Bronx. I worked for the Bronx offenders for a number of years. The community in the Bronx is an important community to me, and just being able to talk more with our elected officials. I see the work that you're doing in the various places in Albany and so on and so forth, fighting to get laws changed, whether it be incarceration or what have you. And it's important for community-based organizations to work in concert with you. So working more with our elected officials to really help to bridge the gap, especially around issues such as gun violence. Gun violence is big in our community. It's up now. It's like in Brooklyn, we have more homicides than we had all of last year, and we're in August. So, these are things that, I want to be a part of changing. So identifying those areas and working with our elected officials, our leaders in the community, and being a voice for change is certainly what I would like to do for the rest of my career. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
Before we move on, there's someone who's asking about what they should type in to access your YouTube channel.
Voices Keston Jones. So Voices, VOICES, and just my name, Keston Jones, KESTON. And you can see it on YouTube. And like I said, the episodes are there, and it's all pro-social. It's just really just sitting down and finding out what's happening with this person and why this person decided to do the work that they're doing. So thank you for those who are going to check it out, and please let's subscribe.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Dennis, what are your future goals?
Future goals. So let me just start by saying this. One of the hardest things about my job as a case manager is coming in contact with young people, young males who are just like how I was before I went to prison, who are young, uneducated, who have underwent a lot of trauma, maybe some mental illness, and who are either headed towards an early grave or through a lengthy prison sentence. When I look at them, I see myself. In prison, I was able to get a degree in behavioral science. I'm a credible messenger. I'm a personal trainer. And I have a bunch of lived experience. And my wife is a mental health clinician. My goal is to take our talents and to create something for those young people to intervene in their lives before they end up dead early or before they end up in prison. And so my goal, what I want to be my legacy before I leave, is Finish Strong. It's a nonprofit organization that me and my wife are currently working on. And I just want to make it a reality and leave my imprint.
Great. Thank you.
In addition to getting my MSW, hopefully from Lehman.
Can I ask a question? I have a follow-up question about what it means to be a credible messenger. You've mentioned it a couple times, but I'm not familiar. So please, could you just give a little context for that?
A credible messenger is somebody who has credibility based off their lived experience. They were once involved with the street life. They might have went to prison, and they have a message based on their firsthand experience of where their choices led them. You could be a credible messenger to a youth, a young person, or I could be a credible messenger to the men who are in my MRT group. When I facilitate, I use my credibility as somebody who once lived this life or who did all this time to deliver a message to hopefully impact them. That's what a credible messenger is, somebody who has that lived experience, but who turned their life around. and who can speak from the heart.
And I think credible messages, may I add, is we're very important in terms of the work that it needs to be done in the community. Many of the communities that we're working with, the South Bronx, Brownsville, East Harlem, Central Harlem, so on and so forth. These are communities that many organizations are funded to work in our communities, but because the staff lack cultural competence, the staff may not be from the community, the staff may have an MSW or what have you, and that's another thing where a lot of these jobs that we have based on, the person needing to have an MSW, needing to be this, or not having a criminal history, it takes us out of these places where, the youth really can respond to us. So being credible is, that young kid who's 16 dealing with somebody who has been through it, that kid will really take your word. He will really, see that there's a pathway towards, education. There's a pathway out of the gang. So a lot of times credible messages are associated with the Cure Violence movement, Cure Violence initiatives, which is looking at violence in our community as a public health issue. In the same way that we deal with public health issues such as, the cold or whatever, or such as Corona, we're talking about isolating the problem. We're talking about doing preventive measures and so on and so forth. It's the same way that we need to address the issues of gun violence. And the farm, at this point, we're happy to announce that we have just recently, started our Cure Violence initiative, which is called Against the Grain. And we're going against the grain of gun violence. And, this is something that, Dennis has mentioned, that I myself am also a credible messenger. And we need to empower more credible messengers to be in positions such as in classrooms like Lehman, in places of education, so we can, obtain those positions to shape how some of these programs are put in the community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I understand that. I appreciate that. I see that Senator Bailey has his hand up, so I want to give him an opportunity to speak, since we also are trying to lose people because it is.
I'm going to be very brief because the credible messengers should speak about being credible messengers. I just want to speak about how critical that is when we're doing things in our neighborhoods, like Snug, RAG, SUV, SOS, STIF, like all of the anti-violence, cure violence, like organizations in my neighborhood. They're credible because, and it's not, well, they're from the streets and such. It's because they have a certain message, right? It's a message that's credible. That may sound silly, but you have these young folks growing up where I grew up. People, you don't know something until you see something, right? And in this neighborhood, in many neighborhoods like mine, unless you're seeing people, as they would say in certain parlance, COGs, for lack of a better term, like you've been through these things. You've seen things done, and you know exactly what's going to happen. And there's a certain level that they're going to have of respect for those individuals, right? So you're 100% right. Both of you are 100% right that we need to expand these programs. Actually, Senator Zelnor Myrie, who's a champion in the legislature from Brooklyn, him and I, we have a gun violence as a public health bill, right? And we don't think about it as public health because we think of everything else in health. But we got to redefine public health, because gun violence 100% is a public health crisis. We are dying at record numbers, and it's us that are doing it. And it's not respectability politics by saying, gun violence is bad. It's not saying that we're excusing police violence. It is saying that we got to get right at home. We gotta figure it out, and we got to get people who can show you the path, who can show these young folks the path and say, this isn't it, y'all. And that's the reason why, I am grateful for credible messengers, and it works. BRAG, the Bronx Rising Against Gun Violence, some of their catchment areas, the shooting numbers have been reduced by 100% in those areas, just because you have those credible messages in the area, being able to have conversations that, quite frankly, I as an elected official, somebody who's not from the streets, can't have, the police can't have, but they can have these conversations and they squash the debate long before it can even germinate and grow into a larger plant problem.
Thank you so much. Carl?
Juan, very quickly, what are some of your goals?
But how could I go after that? I can't follow that right now. And I'm not in the field right now just due to the coronavirus. I was my internship. I was in the field. I loved it. I was helping people referring to Exodus when they go home. Oh, by the way, I was working with Arsenal Hustling for higher education in prison. That's where I did my internship. And I like the field. I like to help the guys. Most of the guys I knew. So I like to direct them in the right path so they can start right the way they did with me. But due to the coronavirus and the quarantine, I'm working in construction right now. So and trying to finish my school. My goal right now is to get my master's degree. That's one and first more. That's my goal. I got 2 jobs now. I got to drop one once the class started, which I need to talk to you, Professor, after we finish with this. And just finish, get into the end. I worked so hard for this. It's been 4 years now.
Juan, talk to me. I may have a position for you.
All right, I will holler you. All right.
Really, please make sure information.
Listening to the three of you men, I don't know what the latest statistics, but it used to be about 67% of people in New York State released from prison recidivated and returned back to prison. Is there something that you three either have that does not put you in that majority category, or is it something the men and women who do return to prison lack or need to develop?
Can I go?
Sure.
I'm a latecomer to education. Instead of my fellows peers right here, they came to prison right to school. I did. When I was in the max, I was doing life. There was no future. I was told I was gonna die in jail. Then I had HIV. Now, I was ready to die. So I never looked at education. I was in the yard lifting weights. I don't look at it right now. I'm scared. But I was doing a bit. Education was not part of it. Then when I went to a medium and I seen hope and a little more freedom and education was there for you to take. And I just, why not? I did have the GD. I had the common sense to finish the GD when I was in the max. I had that. So when I came to the mediums and the college was available to you, I'm like, and once I started, it just changed my life. It just started seeing like, oh, wow. And it's been all wild, this whole journey transition. I'm like, I didn't know that. All I knew was my block. I dropped out of school in the 5th grade. All I knew was my block in the street. School, education, just opened my eyes to a whole different world, and I love it, especially history. I love history. I had my A+ in that class, and it just changed my life. And this is the last 10 years of my bid, and I did 33 years, so I wasted 21 years doing that. I could have probably 3 master's degrees if I knew I liked this. I didn't know I could do this. I was told I was dumb, stupid. I believe it. But I proved myself wrong to the help of professors and everybody. Like last semester in the quarantine, you helped me a lot. I couldn't put 2 words together to finish my last paper. I thought I was going to, but anyway, education saved my life. I got to say that. And since I came home, I went right to school. And that's all I know since I'm home. School and construction. A lot of dust, breaks. I'll come to the class all full of dust. But I come to class. I never miss one class.
Dr. Mazza, can I answer that?
Of course.
So you have to ask the question, right? For those who go back, who were in prison to begin with, what was their experience like, right? Did they have access to a higher education, or were they just abandoned, abused? Did they go in prisons like Attica where the culture of violence is just the norm? Where you see, when we look at what happened with George Floyd in prison, that's a common thing. It may not lead to death as often, but it's common, especially in places like Attica. So when you take somebody who is probably already, who already had issues going into prison, and then you put him in prison, you dehumanize him, you abandon him, you subject him to physical abuse, and you don't offer him any tools to better himself, what is going to happen when he comes home? The result is that he or she is likely to go back. The people who, you talked about the recidivism, it being 67%, I think it has went down. But when you look at education, the more education a person has, the less likely they are to go back to prison. The people that I know, who I did time with in Sing Sing, who left home educated, they are very successful. They're not doing well, they're excelling. They work for places like the Marshall Project, for the Vera Institute of Justice. They work for organizations like Exodus and Hudson Link for Higher Education, and they don't have positions as janitors. No offense to anybody who may push a broom, but they have high positions in administrative positions because their education qualified them to have those positions. And now they're excelling, and they're leaders in their families and in their communities. Education is a major key to that. It's one of the reasons why so many people went to jail to begin with.
Very well said. Keston, you want to add anything?
I mean, it's hard for me to, I choose not to like go down that path in a lot of ways when I think about like the people that may not have been able to remain free due to a number of other issues, because I don't know what were the issues that led them to prison. I'm not sure that while they were in prison, if they received the help that they need. And that's one of the biggest things. It's you know, for me, I'm not supposed to be here. You know, in terms of statistics, in terms of someone who went through what I went through, didn't have education when I went to prison, and came out, you know, more educated, it had a lot to do with the people that I was around. You know, had I been, when I first was incarcerated, I went to Sing Sing, and it was a number of places I could have went. You know, there was a place called, you know, where they play basketball. There might have been a gang member over there. If I had befriended a gang member, it might have been a different story, you know, but it was an individual that saw something in me, and he said, no, you're not going to go over there. You're going to come over here. And he gave me books, and I read these books, and, you know, I fell in love with books, and I would read a book every night, like literally a 300 and 400, and some of us know what I'm talking about. A whole book, you would be up till 3, 4 in the morning and read any book that you could read. And this was some of the skills that I developed. So in thinking about this question, I don't want to answer in a way that somehow puts a negative influence on people not receiving the treatment that they needed. And I think that when a lot of us are in court and we're going before the judge, you know, in our communities, they're not talking about, you know, this person comes from a such and such, or this person is redeemable. They're saying that you're a monster and we're going to get rid of you. And then I see the same people in court where this star athlete from an affluent neighborhood did something heinous, like seriously, without any remorse. And somehow they find a way to not even put the person in prison, you know, expunge their record and all these other things. So in our society, they have this, based on what we see, some individuals are considered redeemable, and other individuals who look like myself are not. And they're playing games with our families and our communities. And so to answer the question, I do think that I have a certain drive in me that some of my peers may not. But that should not be the reason why somebody after serving their time does not receive the services that they need, and you know, are unceremoniously sent back to prison, and just like a finger's pointed at them like they did something wrong. I think that we need to change how we view you know, our system, including our education system. You know, as an adjunct professor, I'm seeing it from a different perspective. I have, in most cases, 16 to 20 students in my classes, and out of all my students, I may have 1 or 2 men in my classroom, period. You know, 1 or 2 men in my classroom, and in a lot of cases, their writing and their reading is not up to, you know, in some cases, the standards. So I'm asking myself, what is happening in elementary school, junior high school, and high school? What are these teachers doing to our students to not put them in a position to be more educated and to receive, you know, what they need in those areas? So, you know, it's a number of other things that we can consider when it comes to this question. But I do say that there are many individuals that are fighting and to remain free. but they end up in situations where it may not be the best for them, you know, a family member or a housing situation, and that may lead them to make decisions that put them back in prison. So the goal for me is to work with organizations like Exodus, Osborne Fortune Society, and a number of other organizations, including SCO Family Services, so we can provide support for these individuals so they won't go back to prison.
Great, thank you.
So we're getting close to 3 o'clock, so I just want to also echo what has been populating the chat. I think most of you, probably including Juan, because I know you're joining us from the field, haven't been able to see maybe the questions and answers section.
No,
People have been talking about how much they respect you and how moving it has been to hear about your journey and how inspiring it is. So thank you for taking the time and for sharing your expertise and having a spirited conversation that I think is quite necessary. There are some questions in the chat still about programs, and the Reentry Committee at Lehman is welcoming new members. So when you, I'll send an email from within this webinar with some of the links that you can have that as a resource. Again, our next screening is going to be September 17th. That will be the final screening. It'll be the 4th. We've been having them all summer. And we will be joined by a producer of College Behind Bars, Salima El-Amin, and Ann Rice, and maybe some other guests will join us as well. So I hope to see you there at 1 o'clock. That information will also be in the follow-up email. Unless there's anything else from our panelists.
I just want to say, just thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for all the individuals that invested in me. Dr. Mazza, you know, the faculty at Shiva University, also very welcoming as well. You know, feel great to be a part of that team as well. And, you know, I will continue to do the work. Please, you know, Dr. Mazza, anytime you call me, I'm there. So thank you guys. Much appreciated.
thank you
Thanks.
for everything. I appreciate it. And having a great evening.
You too, Juan.
Yeah,
Just want to add that Exodus will be collaborating with Vassar College and Dutchess Community College to provide education for people who are reentering society in Poughkeepsie. We're very proud to be working with Vassar and Dutchess Community College, and I just wanted to shout them out.
I appreciate you bringing in Vassar, since that's my alma mater, and I love to hear about Vassar being involved. Actually, my involvement in this particular series comes out of being at the pre-release program at Greenhaven through my work at Vassar. So it's always great to hear things come full circle in that way. Thank you for mentioning it. And with that, I will let you all go. Enjoy your Friday. Have a great weekend. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.